and we have a quorum. And Todd, are you going to put up the flag and Pledge of Allegiance words there for us?
Absolutely. Here we go.
So the way we're going to do that today is I will say the Pledge of Allegiance, and you guys can either mute and say it or just not talk, and maybe it'll turn out slightly better this time. So here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we got some pretty good feedback going with somebody.
Somebody has a radio on or a TV station on in the background. If you could mute yourself, please. Thank you.
Okay. So Superintendent Kolb, do we have any additional written communication besides what was in our?
No, we do not. No additional written communications.
Okay. So if someone has a request to speak to an action item or discussion item, if they would, I don't know, Todd, how about you describe to them how they send a question in with Zoom?
So right now, if you, oh, yeah, I'm not muted, sorry. If you have a question you'd like to speak to an agenda item, you can use the chat feature and you can chat that to the whole group, and then I can note that and I'll tell the board chair that there is a question or a statement in the chat room and we can read that aloud.
Okay, and the chat feature is where?
Usually off to the right, and it'll say something like chat, and you can just click on it and it will open up the chat feature, and you can actually select to the whole group or to a specific person. But in this case, we would do it to the whole group because it's for the board, and then I'll monitor that.
If you hover over the screen where everybody's at, it's down on the bottom, I think is the standard view for that. I know Hangouts is up on the top right. Zoom, I have it on the bottom.
Yep, down at the bottom, you just bring your mouse to the bottom and it will be right there. And I see Trish just gave an example. Trish says hello to everyone in the chat.
And can I do a roll call attendance, because I don't see Casey Durbin and I want to make sure.
She is on now, but yes, I think you should do a roll call anyway.
Okay. So if board members can unmute themselves. Board Chair Richardson.
Here.
Member Durbin. Member Durbin. Okay, Member Wilkins.
Here.
Member DeLagrange.
Here.
Member Brownell.
Here.
Member Nelson.
Here.
Member Coleman.
Here.
And Levi, Casey is on. It shows video, but no audio, so she might be having some audio problems.
I've called in on a separate. I've got two. I'm 2 of the 20.
Gotcha. Beautiful.
Okay.
Okay. So a little bit about our speaking guidelines for the meeting. After a little debrief last time, we find that some of the people listening weren't able to identify who was speaking. So today we will try to identify ourselves before we speak, and I'll try to remind you if I think we're starting to backslide on that particular issue. And so this is Gary speaking. So we will attempt to do that, and that should help some of us to be able to identify who's talking. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Member Durbin. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
And I would make the motion to
approve the consent agenda as presented.
This is Member Durbin. I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
No.
At this point, Secretary Clark will take a roll call vote.
Okay, to approve the consent agenda, Board Chair Richardson,
Yes.
Member Durbin,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member DeLagrange,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Member Coleman.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. And at this point, Superintendent Kolb, would you give us the update on the GP Learn at Home?
Absolutely, this is Superintendent Kolb. So basically what has changed for us, expectations from the state, is to transition from just providing supplemental learning and opportunities that are pretty broad and generic to actually attempting to teach new instruction and adhere and cover as many standards as we can. While we are in closure, the words from the state are not that we are officially closed, is that there's a high likelihood that we will be closed for the remainder of the school year. So this team has done an incredible job of putting things together and organizing teachers and classified around how we're going to serve our students. And so I'm going to turn it over one at a time to our directors to give an overview and their part in what they're overseeing. So we're going to start with the elementary model presented by Director Zatola.
Hi guys. I'm trying to remember what I shared with you last time we talked, because a lot of our model has not changed. It's more just adding to what we were already planning on doing. So we rolled out this week our first week of packets. So hard copy paper pencil packets went out yesterday for the first time, either pick up with the grab and go lunch or delivered if that was the request of the parent on buses. So that went out, and then our Google Classrooms also went live. Right now they're a shared Google Classroom for a grade level at a school. That's one of the things that may or may not change. Access for students and parents would not look any different whether or not teachers decide to go to independent classrooms or not. But so the Google Classrooms went live. There's a morning message from the principal every day, just like there is on a regular school day. That will continue. And then this week was more just about saying hello, maybe doing a read aloud, doing some review of some work, some things like that. We are actually going to continue with that plan next week. So it will look very similar. What will be added for all schools is the continuation of our Journeys curriculum, which is our district-wide reading curriculum. So some schools did that this week, but all schools will do it next week, where we just continue on with our story and skill of the week by grade level across the district. And then starting the week of the 20th, we will add in new instruction of math. So we're doing a more layered approach for us, for our kids and families. It is for most of them, it's a lot to learn just how to log into a Google Classroom, then log into Clever, access a packet of material, open up videos, especially for our younger students. We're not asking so much students to do that, but parents to do that. And we're trying to be very thoughtful about how overwhelming this can be for parents who have who are working, who have multiple kids, and who aren't teachers. This isn't their world. And so just being very thoughtful about that and what we're asking them to do. So these first 2 weeks, it's really just about getting used to the system, getting into a routine, having a schedule, helping parents plan out, having designated spots where the learning will take place. So it's different than just any other part of their day, having some structure. So it's all about that. And then the week of the 20th, we'll be up and running with new math, reading, and writing instruction.
I want to raise my hand for a second, if that's all right, just to chime in on the overwhelming.
So that would be Member Durbin.
Member Durbin, who likes talking, is going to talk now. I will second that, what Susan said. I am pretty technology savvy and have been pretty involved in what Aiden's been learning in kindergarten. But I had to reach out to his teacher today to be like, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now between Google Classroom and the packets and the organization of it. So never mind the people that are also trying to understand how to use a computer and how to log in and do all of the mechanics of it. On top of that, it's still overwhelming trying to get my brain organized in a way to digest the information and then understand how I'm supposed to then teach my kids the material. So I'm very happy that we're not doing math for another week, because I need another week just to kind of get in the rhythm of it all. But yeah, I guess I will just back up what Susan's saying as far as, I'm very appreciative that the teachers have been very responsive and eager to help explain. And it is a lot of information. It is not easy, even, it's just going to be a challenge across the board.
And it's what I'm also reminding people, and sometimes need to remind myself, we're in a day and a half of our first week of ever doing it, and we already learned a lot. I just spent 2 hours with my principals this morning talking about the organization of Google Classrooms and folders and hiding the stream and all these things that I never knew anything about. And so things will get better, things will get cleaned up, things will be more organized. And we just ask our parents to have a lot of patience with us, and remember that as of right now, it's day 1.5 into something that is completely new for everybody. So we will get better as the days go on.
Any other board members have any questions? This is Member Richardson. I had a question. Do we have an estimate of the amount of time that it should take, say, an elementary student, a middle school student, and a high school student to do the work that we've given them, just in general?
There are guidelines that came out from ODE about not necessarily how long it might take an individual student to complete the work, because that's going to vary just like it does in the classroom. Some kids will get things done in lickety-split and their parents are going to want more for them, and some kids it will take a lot longer. But for what we present to kids, there are some maximum limits. For K1, that's 45 minutes a day, an hour for 2-3, and then I probably have it right in front of me, but an hour and a half, I think, or 90 minutes. 4-5. For 4-5, and then it's a total of 3 hours a day max for secondary students. Trish can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So that guidance came out from ODE. Now, does that mean that that doesn't mean that that is necessarily how long it might take any one individual kid to get their assignments or their projects done. But what we present will not exceed those limits.
Thank you.
Superintendent Kolb, I'm going to turn it over to Director Evans to give you an update on middle school and high school.
So I'll start with kind of some general things that apply to both levels and then give you some more specificity, particularly for the high school and credit. So, and there's a few things that are different between elementary and secondary. Our supplemental learning site was up the week we got back from spring break. It's the district supplemental site. You can go to each one of the 3 secondary schools and find links to their individual school supplementary information. But what is already happening and transitioning based on the ODE guidance we got for distance learning at 9 p.m. on Monday night is our distance learning plan is coming together to start on Monday, April 13th. And teachers are starting to put what those weeks will look like for instruction. So we'll forward to board members the links to those sites so that you can see what teachers are putting together for our GP Learn at Home distance learning plan. When we got the guidance from ODE, secondary worked to put together some guidelines for our staff, some expectations. And one thing we've made clear, and it's supported by the work from Oregon Department of Education, is through all of the next coming weeks ahead, our first and foremost #1 priority is to check on the social and emotional health of our students. That's more important than any kind of academic work that we're going to be able to accomplish. These are very difficult times. I can speak for me personally. I have days of dark clouds over my head where I feel like I'm alone, and I'm not. But it's hard to keep doing this distance kind of thing. So checking in with our students, checking on their social emotional health, making sure they're okay. The second thing we're attending to and ensuring across the board is equity. This one is a lot more challenging, as you can imagine, making sure that students have access to the Chromebooks, to the internet, that our IEPs are being met, and Todd and Linda will address the plans for both of those specifically. But as classroom teachers, what you put out there on your distance learning plan for your students to do at home, we're really making sure staff comes at it from an equity stance, planning for the students who will have the most difficult time accessing the education first, and then planning up from there. So really taking a strong equity stance. What also came in the guidance and what we've been working on, we have a daily schedule at all for Gladiola, Grants Pass High School, and North and South that parents are starting to get today. I know that North has already sent theirs out today. We'll forward those daily schedules to you as well so you can see how we're balancing the time. As Susan mentioned, 3 hours maximum is the recommendation per day. In our staff expectations, each teacher is from daily work to the instruction, no more than 30 minutes per day for your students. And teachers will have some face-to-face Google Hangout Zoom meetings with our students. We've put together guidelines for interaction in this online environment with our students. We're working on our attendance plan. Oregon Department of Ed has indicated to us more guidance will be coming on that. So how that will work is something still in flux. And then our most difficult obstacle that we still are working to put our plan together are grades and how we report, record student progress. That's what's dictated to us in the distance learning plan from ODE. And so we're still working to better identify that. But one decision that has been made across the board for middle and high school is all grades will be pass, no pass. There will be no letter grades. So for middle school, it will look a little bit different. For middle school, they'll take the work students did in the first part of the semester from January 27th to March 13th. Students were getting some sort of a letter grade. Teachers will be converting those to pass, no pass, and going forward from April 13th on, that grade will be changed to pass or no pass depending on the student's interaction, the work, and some further guidance that we're working to develop on grading for middle school. For high school, it's a different scenario. For high school, we are taking January 27th through March 13th, and we are working to finalize the grades. I say finalize with air quotes because we all, just like we always do, there will be students who don't meet our deadline this week, and we will continue to accommodate and change grades as necessary. But the plan is to issue a quarter credit for those 7 weeks of instruction. So if a student was enrolled in their math class and getting a B, that will be converted to a pass, no pass, and they'll get a quarter credit for it. And then starting April 13th forward, they'll be working on their next quarter credit for the high school grades. For classes that are dual credit at Grants Pass High School, we've been working very closely with Road Community College and SOU on our dual credit program. RCC has indicated that a number of their courses will be pass, no pass as well. Not all of them, but some of them will be pass, no pass. What teachers will report in our system for high school credit, say a student passes their pre-calculus class, that might get converted to an A for their RCC credit, depending on the student's overall outcome. And that's the dual credit teachers have been partnering with their college partners to figure out that part. And then finally, what I tell you about AP testing at the high school, AP has drastically changed the AP exam. Students will only be tested on the curriculum that was covered up to the point of closure on March 13th. There's a very cool graphic AP has put together about what that content looks like. So what AP teachers are doing right now is they're working with their students virtually to prep for the AP exam. The AP exam will be given remotely. Individual students will take it in their homes. It will be an open-ended response, no multiple choice assessment. It'll last 45 minutes, and that is how AP will be taking AP exams this year. So we're trying to keep on top of all of it at the secondary level, and those are just some of the high-level key points of what we've been working on. Any questions?
I have one. This is Member Wilkins. Is there a reason why Schoolology does it not? Because you used that for like credit recovery, didn't you? Or don't we?
We used Schoolology for one of our summer school. It's used for Career Academy, not for Career Academy. It's used for personal wellness and Lifetime Fitness in the summer. But we're not using that as our learning management system for our distance learning plan now. We'll be using Google Classroom at both middle school and high school.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Member DeLagrange. I have a question. Trish, thanks for all that info, first of all. It was good to hear all that. The question I had is, do we have any specific plans yet on how to address our students checking in with regards to mental health?
Yeah, I'll let Todd explain it a little bit more. Our counselors and our mental health professionals that we're working with have been working on that plan. And so that's a little bit more specific. That's what we're really trying to encourage our teachers to do in our guidelines for online communication with students. We very clearly have outlined there's still obligation as a mandatory reporter. They need to bring to the attention of their administrator and counselor any warning signs that they see, whether if they're in a Zoom meeting or Google Hangout, or through the messaging that cause them concern. And then our counseling team is going to be right on top of that. And I know Todd's going to say this, but Options has been great about coming alongside of us for that partnership.
This is Member Brownell. Do we have a plan yet for getting seniors graduated?
We have had a couple of different meetings with the Oregon Department of Education as they work on what the graduation requirements for the class of 2020 will look like. Those are not public information yet, but we have both, as the plans have been developed, we have been working our plans. So when the state officially announces what graduation requirements are for the class of 2020, we have a plan in place. I just met with the high school team this morning. I would share with you that beyond the graduation requirements, and we do know we're going to have a number of students that we're going to have to come alongside and find new and different strategies to help support them. I'll give you an example. I've been delegated 2 seniors who are at risk of not graduating, and I've made contact with both of them today. That kind of personal, more people reaching out and encouraging a student so that they can meet the graduation requirements. But as soon as those become official, I'll be able to speak to our plan a little bit better. I do know that what Ryan is going to start to do is he's going to be connecting with senior parents that have been on the senior activity planning committee all year. He's going to be connecting with leadership seniors that are in the elected officers of the senior class. He's looking at lots of different ideas depending on getting poised and ready for if the state does close school for the remainder of the year. What will our graduation look like? What will scholarship night look like? What will prom look like, etc. So he's going to be gathering some input from the stakeholders to make some decisions about what that could look like depending on the governor's guidance and then the graduation requirements. So I don't have anything official to share with you, Debbie, about what the class of 2020's graduation outcomes will look like, but I can guarantee you I will have it for you by the next board meeting because I think it'll be official this week.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, hearing none, the Superintendent Colvin, just for timekeeping sake, we do have a 2 o'clock meeting with ODE where we think they could possibly give us that clear direction. So just keeping track of time there. So now I'd like to turn it over to Director White to talk about the significant changes for special education.
Yes, thanks, Kirk. So we, under the first order from Governor Brown and ODE, where we were charged with providing supplemental learning opportunities, the implications for special ed were, the expectations were fairly low that we were to provide things and hopefully serve kids the best we can, with the idea that all these school closure days didn't really count for special ed compliance purposes. But a week ago, when the new order was issued and we are now charged with providing distance learning for all, that really changed the entire complexion of what's required for special education services. So beginning April 13th, the charge is that we must meet all the services and supports and specially designed instruction that's on each IEP. And that includes all of our special services from specialists such as our deaf and hard of hearing people, occupational therapists, autism specialists, speech language pathologists, and all the supports that kids need. Additionally, you know, we have a number of kids in site-based classrooms who have significant needs and are impacted by their disabilities, and some have medical needs as well. So in the world of special ed, the change a week ago was kind of like a big bomb being dropped in our world, and we've been working really hard to to really step up our people. I have to say our people have been very resourceful, resilient, creative, and are up to the challenge, and they've kind of had a can-do attitude. So we've got speech pathologists connecting remotely with kids, and our case managers are working to connect with parents to provide everything we possibly can. And the school days starting April 13th do count for all of our timeline purposes. So it's complicated, but I would say that as of right this minute, we're in a good place with the supports that our people are able to provide. And as we move down the road, if the closure lasts longer, we'll have some things we have to attend to because it's so individual and the needs are really great for our students. But our case managers are on top of it right now at this time and are really working to meet the needs of all the kids.
Any questions for Director White? Superintendent Cole again. Hearing none, I'd like to turn it over to Director Bloomquist. Todd, if you want to first touch base on the mental health piece and the meetings you've had and conversations, and then roll into the tech stuff.
You bet. So, and I'll keep it short because I know our meetings got limited time today. So yeah, met with about 35 folks last week, from our behavior intervention specialists to our counselors, social emotional counselors, school counselors, and our options partners, and kind of broken things down into several categories of where we're going to need to be real thoughtful, attentive, and providing guidance for kids and families and staff members about how to do this thing called, learn at home during a quarantine and a pandemic. Lots of just innate fears that are surfacing from simple things like parents trying to figure out how to use the technology to get their kiddo onto a class assignment. We are fielding a lot of phone calls just about those issues itself. How do I connect a Chromebook to my internet at home? Those kinds of things, just kind of holding people's hands through that process. So that's just one level of fear. And that has really very little to do with the greater fears that are out there, like how do we manage life at home together now that we're all here, the worries about people dying every day, those kinds of things. So we're meeting again this week and providing some real particular guidance that we can start giving out to our staff as they're working with kids and families, things to say, things to be mindful of, and also just ways to provide resources for folks. So where can you go when you're struggling, and making sure that happens. Regarding violence in the home or adversities in the home, it's very complicated to think about what we used to be able to see in person. We now have to see digitally. And can you attend to families that are really struggling to be kind to each other, to just get along, and what do you do with that? And so providing some clarity for our staff so that they feel confident about how to provide those supports for families, and when to get more community resources like from DHS involved in those homes, and what that looks like. So that's the work right now. Amazing staff to work with. So many bright and sophisticated people who have all kinds of really great tools to provide for families. So that's really good work that's going on. So as the week goes on into next week, we'll provide even more clarity for folks. Regarding technology, so we, as of about 10 o'clock this morning, we had checked out 3,517 Chromebooks to our students. So of the 6,100 kids, about 3,500 and some have said we need a Chromebook at this point. The lines are very, very slow right now. Again, social distancing, people have to stay in their car to come to the school, and then we'll check a Chromebook out to them. So just very minimal today, and that number seems to be going down every day. We're not sure what that will look like once classrooms are really up and running with more assignments and expectations, so that number might uptick again. But we have about 6,400 Chromebooks in our inventory, so we're more than able to handle that need. We spent a lot of time working on digital learning, providing training for staff. If you go to the staff page on the main website, you'll get to resources, and the big blue text at the top is our digital staff training center. And you have to have a Google login to get into that. But once you're in, the staff have 1-minute clips on how to how to host a Zoom meeting, or how to do a Google Hangouts, or the 5 steps to setting up your Google Classroom and those kinds of things. And then the staff have been just amazing at sharing and providing resources for each other and helping each other out. A significant amount of time on just cleaning up the websites and keeping information pretty concise and channeling everybody to the right stuff, the most current stuff. So we're trying to keep that all up and going. Looking at new logos for each of our schools for Learn at Home and what that looks like. So that's very clean and clear for people as they're going to their school's website. Oh, this is where I get to my Learn at Home stuff. And we'll get better at that as we go, of course. Lots of emails from staff and community members, parents. How do I do this? What do I do with this? And so all of us are spending a lot of our hours just answering email. And I think for me, and this is an old thing that came from a youth group thing that one of my kids was involved in, the person leading says, hey, we need to be like red vines. And I looked at him like, what do you mean red vines? And he said, we need to be sweet and flexible. And so all of us are just working hard to be, as people are asking questions, maybe it's the same question that you've answered 35 times today, but we're going to answer it in a way that's positive, and we're helping because people are trying to manage and find their way through this. And so we need to be in our best place to help people out. So being sweet and flexible like a red vine is a good thing. That's probably it for now. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, obviously, but are there any questions from anybody?
This is Member Durbin. I just have a thought on the social emotional reach out piece, as although I am worried about our at-risk population and what the home environment is going to look for them in the near future. If there's any messaging that should just be kind of standard for all families, because I think even our at-risk population is going to potentially suffer from a social emotional standpoint, just because my son is very much like me, and when we can't get it right the first time and we're perfectionists, we get frustrated and we get angry and we lash out, and I lash out and he lashes out, and then and what would normally be a very healthy school experience for Aiden if he's at school has already gone off the guardrails a couple of times for me at home. And I know it's about being patient, and this is day 1.5, as Susan said. But I think involving some of those discussions for all parents and all families it's basically preparing parents' mental capacity to be here for the long haul, because we're not just trying to make this work for a week. So
yes.
That's just my two cents on what I've seen just firsthand in my own home trying to handle this. Is I have not been the best teacher, and so it's helping parents to give themselves a break and relax and figure that out. And my only other thought, and this is just selfishly, if teachers could send a message to their students to listen to their parents. My kids listen to their teachers so well, and they do not care at all about what I ask them to do when it comes to their schoolwork. But if I say, Mrs. Thompson told me that you're supposed to listen to me when it comes to there's just this mental switch of having this kind of permanent substitute teacher who's this other figure in your life. So just some thoughts on kind of making that home social emotional balance piece work, so you can impart as much academic knowledge, is just kind of my 2 cents in me living with this for, the little while that I have.
I love it. I've got those both written down, and I think you're 100% correct that even in the best of situations, this is really difficult, and everybody needs to give each other a little bit of grace, but also how do you help schedule out your day so everybody has kind of a plan and knows what they're doing, and also to give each other a little bit of space, because we're used to having a little more space.
Okay, so this is Member Richardson. The state has a number of online districts, I guess.
Virtual academies.
They're called. I'm not sure.
Yeah, virtual academies or charter schools.
Yeah. So is the state using that essentially model or whatever are they giving that kind of information to us as best practices or anything like that?
So they're on the ODE's website. They have just obviously just a coronavirus and resources for educators. There's a lot of learning tools out there for delivering virtual or online education. Regarding those virtual charter schools, virtual academies, the state has said nobody enrolls new students, including them, at this time. I don't know if that's going to change, but I have received probably about 30 notifications of families who have an intent to enroll in a virtual charter school. And so we know that it's going to have some impact on retention of students if we are in this for a longer period of time, and they do allow those virtual charters to start taking more students, because it's not been the business we've been in, so everybody's new to it in public ed that isn't already delivering that. So, but yes, there's numerous resources out there. We're looking, finding new ones every day, tools and other things to best deliver this. Even many of those virtual charter schools have face-to-face interaction, live bodies, so every model looks a little bit different, and including ours.
That and just protecting, FERPA rules and compliance and making sure that we're protected from the outside world. You've heard that Zoom has been the target of a number of cyber attacks and Zoom bombs. They've now changed their strategy so that you have to have a password to get into one of those Zoom meetings, so that makes it more protected. And I've been in communication with their executive team through our regional consortium, and they've assured us that they're actually spending 100% of their resources right now on plugging all the holes for Zoom and making it a safe environment for everybody. It's so widely used across the world. So things like that we're also making sure that we're careful to put out there for our staff and our kids. Other questions?
Okay, Superintendent Kolb, hearing no other questions, I'm going to turn it over to Director Ely to talk about our operational side, the operations we are continuing to do as required, as well as I'm going to have her touch on just the work that our team has been doing regarding finances and potential cuts and the various topics there, both with student investment account and general fund potentials. Go ahead, Sherry.
Hi there, everyone. This is Sherry. On our operations side, Kirk touched a little bit on custodial, and so we have a plan worked out with James. He's coordinating all of our custodians, so kind of cutting back a little bit on the work that those guys are doing. So moving ahead with that. On the food service side, our grab and go lunches, we're serving about 1,200 to 1,500 lunches per day. And on our bus delivery, about 300 to 500. So not quite as many on the bus stop drops that we thought we might have, but still doing pretty good with that. Our print shop is keeping up with the print for the Learn at Home. Transportation is being a big help with delivering the curriculum as well as the food. And then on the budget side, like I mentioned last meeting, I'm on a couple of state committees, and we're working on some templates that can be used statewide as everybody looks at what the COVID-19 is going to be doing for the statewide economy. And so we all know that it's going to affect us in some way or another, and so reductions will probably have to be made. So working on some kind of standardized templates that we can use across the state. For us here at District 7, we met yesterday to talk about our student investment account and kind of prioritizing what we would do if we do have to make any reductions. And so we have a plan in place of kind of a tiered approach at a 25%, a 30%, and a 50% reduction level, just prioritizing those things that we have in the fully funded budget and kind of how we would tier those if we do have the reductions at those different levels. And, of course, if there's no student investment account funding, then we know we would have to just not do any of the projects there, and we'd have to figure out a way to cover the cost of the classroom additions that we're doing. So doing lots of work on that. on the general fund side, I've worked up a few projections going like from a 3 to a 6% reduction in funding. So working on, with the director team, working on prioritization of what we would do if our general fund, our state school fund budget is cut. Still hearing from the state that they have a hefty reserve, and so far they're not saying that they're going to be doing any reductions at the state school fund level, that is their first priority, is to preserve that, and then secondly to preserve Measure 98. So just kind of continuing to keep, you know, up to date with the groups up at the state level, and we'll definitely continue to keep Kirk and the board informed as we see anything coming down the pike as far as funding reductions, that kind of thing. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I have kind of just a new girl question. Do we move forward on budgeting as if, not for SIA, I understand that, but like for the state school, for a regular budget season?
Yes, and so, yeah, we have to have a budget that has been fully vetted by the budget committee and then formally adopted by the board. I have to have a document to ODE by June 30th. And so we have to move forward. And so, you know, what my plan is to budget just as if we're going to get our full allocation of state school funding, and then have a plan in place that we can cut back if we need to. And the reason I do that is if we don't allocate the dollars up front, we can't spend them down the road. And so it's easier to fully allocate what you think your funding would have been at the full funded level, and then have a plan in place to back off of that. And so that's our approach for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Member Brownell, I noticed that some school districts are having troubles getting supplies for like lunches and packets to go. Are we in that category?
Nope, not yet. So far we've been doing well with all of the supplies we need for the packets as well as for food distribution. So, but we're keeping an eye on that, and have been in communication with the state as well, because that's been a real concern for a lot of districts. So watching it.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
This is Member DeLagrange. You mentioned right at the beginning cutting back either duties or workload for custodial staff, and I was just wondering how that was being implemented. Are their duties reduced? Are their hours reduced? Or what specifically was happening there?
Essentially, we're doing with them like we're doing with kind of here at the district office, where we're staggering their schedules so that we don't want to have too many people in the building at the same time. And so, but we know we have some essential areas that we still need the cleaning done, you know, like in the kitchens. And if we do have any staff coming in the buildings, we need, you know, the trash taken care of and any sanitizing in any of the classrooms that we have. We also have outside work that continues, that we have the need for, because as you know, the weather's getting nicer. And so that presents some challenges for us, just with our landscaping maintenance outside. So we're just staggering their schedule so that we don't have too many people working in, you know, proximate distance to one another, but while still accomplishing the work that needs to be done.
Member Brownell, have you been able to contact the alternative resources for herbicides?
No, I have not, Member Brownell. I'll be totally honest with you, that has not been a priority. We've had so many other emergent issues that we've had to deal with in regard to the COVID-19 that it has kind of fallen to the wayside for a moment. That being said, we did do, or the guys are doing an application today at North Middle School, but we're still using the non-carcinogenic. It's casseron. They're little granules that they can spread around the base of the plants. And so we're not using Roundup or any of those type of products.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Superintendent Kolb, if there are no further questions for Director Ely, we're going to let our HR bat clean up in this conversation with anything else that he'd like to add to the story or talk about regarding staffing and meeting the obligations we need to at this time. Go ahead, Danny. You got to unmute yourself. There you go.
Well, I'm actually doing it by phone, but that may not work, so hold on.
I will try it with the computer. How's that? Too much feedback.
Yeah,
So,
that's better, Danny.
I guess we're going to do some stuff in executive session around the MOUs and that kind of thing. So I will not really discuss that other than to say we've had really great, probably the best relations that we've had with both associations, especially the Teachers Association, in working with us on making this stuff happen. And so really, really pleased with that. I mean, we have agreement on how we're going to grade, for goodness sakes, in a one-day period of time. That's unheard of. Classified staff really stepping up and helping. We had 33 people that are helping with the child care for the emergency crews. Obviously, the food service is delivering food. The transportation is delivering transportation. Print shop's doing an amazing print shop job, mainly with Heather. Custodials is cleaning. Just really proud of our staff. Teachers have been able to work for the very most part remotely. A few stops in at the classrooms and that kind of stuff, but just exceptionally proud of our staff for how they've stepped up and been adaptable in this time. So I guess that's my biggest thing. Just thankful for Trish, Susan, Todd, Linda, Kirk, Sherry, all the work that they've done to make this stuff happen. And so thank you guys. Questions?
Hearing no questions, the Superintendent Kolb, that concludes our report on GP Learn at Home.
Okay, this is Member Richardson, or Chair Richardson, I guess, at this point. So we'll move to board reports and special concerns. We had one item, which is mostly just a reminder that we have some work to do related to setting the superintendent goals before the end of the year. Todd, do you have the, there we go. So is the font large enough this time, people?
Looks
Yes,
good.
Member
Durbin?
This is Member Nelson.
Yeah,
It's
we
large
can
enough.
see it. Yep.
Okay. So what's on these slides are just some things that have been sent to me by board members as possible high-level categories. Some of them relate to the vision, which we will be, since it hasn't been on our radar, I'm not quite sure when we're going to get to working with OSBA for that particular work, but Todd, go ahead and flip to the next page. So these are just to let you see some of the stuff that's come in. For those of you that haven't sent me any, be thinking about them. You could go ahead and send them to me, and when we get to that point, we'll probably discuss this further at our next board meeting, because we have to start narrowing this stuff down so we can do that work. Go ahead to the next page, Todd. And I believe we have one more. There we go.
This is Member Durbin. Should we add one that says "Be the calf"?
Yeah.
anybody else read the wonderful poem that Gary sent out to share.
So that's kind of it for that agenda item. It was mostly just prime the pump so that you guys will start thinking about that for our next meeting. I do have one other item, and that would be Kirk is going to send out his previous contract, his proposed new contract, and some salary comparison information that he has. Debbie and I are working together to come up with some recommendations to give to the board at one of our board meetings here next month sometime. So you'll get that information. This is just a time for any of you that would like to have a greater role in the recommendation, I guess, to give me some input. Okay, well, so yes, go ahead.
This Member Wilkins, I'm not completely clear on what you were just saying there. Kirk's going to recommend or give comparison.
Okay, so this is Member Richardson. I'll try again. So Kirk has a contract and he needs a new one. And Debbie and I, or Member Brownell and I, are working on coming up with recommendations to the board for the contract for the coming years.
Okay.
So, Member Brownell, so instead of just sending the current contract and the proposed draft contract and the comparison study to just Chair Richardson and I, shouldn't maybe the whole board get that information? And then if they have any questions, contact Chair Richardson. How does that sound?
Yeah, I thought that's what I said, but clearly I haven't been doing a good job here, so. Yes, we will send that to all the board members. But Member Brownell and I are going to work on some recommendations to give to the board about that final contract. Okay, with that, so a little bit at this point, Superintendent Kolb, how are you envisioning we go into executive session and then come out of executive session to do action items?
I have one more board report question.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Member Durbin. Sure.
I just want to take a page out of Member Nelson's book and ask Kirk or any of the other directors if there's anything else we could be doing as a board to help support you guys. What do you guys need right now? This isn't a one-time ask. Obviously, if things come up in the future, to reach out and ask. But is there anything on top of mind that we can be focusing our time and energy on to be helping support you guys and the district?
I guess I'm just speaking for myself right now. I don't know a lot other than if there are opportunities to maybe do an interview with Casey and the Courier and the board's perspective and the efforts of the district right now, because they're wearing on all of us, and you can feel it here in the office every day, and we know it's wearing on families. And but like Danny said, I just can't be more proud of how people have stepped up, and we will ask if there's something comes up. We will definitely ask.
Okay, sounds good.
I got extra time. I can change sheets, laundry.
I did hear you mention something about yard work, and I've got about 9 acres that could use some tending to.
See, I changed it to laundry. I stopped here. I quit somewhere in the last hour. It was too much excitement about the yard work.
So Member Brownell, I would also like to give kudos to the people in the who are making face shields and pieces from the 3D imaging for our health professionals in the community, and very appreciative of those efforts.
A quick comment on that. Kristen did the press release, and then she held a virtual press conference with numerous media outlets yesterday. So some good media coverage on that partnership between the district and Asante, and the good work going in our community.
Can we ask for Kristen to tell us how her first couple of weeks have been? Or does she have ideas?
Yeah, sure. Kristen speaking. So that was probably just a nice way to at least let people know that we're here and we're working on stuff. It was really awesome to see how quickly they grabbed on to that story idea. I mean, it really just speaks to what We Are GP really means. And I actually heard from Brenda, the teacher who's doing the 3D printing, that the networks picked it up and it actually was seen all the way down in Southern California. So I don't know where else it went, but I got a text this morning saying, my friend in Oceanside saw me on the news. So that's always a really cool thing, just to be able to highlight the stuff that we're working on. And it makes me excited to know that that's just a small piece of the things that are going on all of our campuses, that when we make it through this distance learning and we're back in session, it makes me excited for all the things that we're going to be able to highlight and let people know about what we're doing. But in terms of how it's been the first couple weeks, it's been a whirlwind. Like I've said before, you know, it's kind of like trying to learn how a boat operates and learning how the district operates, while also trying to just get in there and help in the middle of a storm. And so it's been a whirlwind of trying to just help in my abilities and where I know that I can help, while also just trying to learn all of the intricacies of the district and how it works. So it's been a fun, exciting learning opportunity.
Well, I can see on the Facebook page some of the things that obviously I think you've come up with, or different ideas. And then the Office of the Superintendent, as a parent, getting those. It's just very clear and concise as to who's speaking and what, you know, the pathway of information. So those are things that I've seen. And so I'm excited. Thank you. Keep it up.
Thank you.
If it were only clear that Member Wilkins was the one speaking there, that would have been good. Okay, any more board reports?
Well, I would like to take a moment just to thank you for this upgrade in the audio. It is absolutely wonderful today for somebody like myself, and I trust others who have an option on how to tune in. And I want to thank you, Gary, for taking the bull by the horns and making something really an upgrade. It's so important.
Okay, you're welcome. Any more board reports? Okay, at this point, back to Superintendent Kolb to discuss how we go into executive session and then out again.
Okay, so Dr. Bloomquist is running, he's the man behind the curtain right now, and he gets to put anybody who's not a board member or a pertinent director in a waiting room. So they will not be part of the movie. So Todd, we're going to wait for you to tell us when we are in executive session.
Sounds good. It'll take me just a couple minutes to go through. I think I have all the board members' phone numbers who have called in, and I don't want to inadvertently put you also into that waiting room. So give me a couple of minutes and then I'll signal back around again and make sure we're all in the right room and that the other people are out of the room.
This is Board Member Wilkins. Can I talk because nobody else is?
Go right ahead.
So I shared with a couple of people that were on early But I ran down to one of the bus stops today and got lunches for Rayella, or a lunch. And it was really heartfelt to see the bus driver and the other person on the bus that were really connecting with each of the students, and that social emotional piece of, you know, talking to them. Hey, how did you guys do over the weekend? How, you know, didn't see you yesterday. So just really connecting. I think that, I don't know the right way to get it out, but I think that there is a whole bunch of people that are not, we haven't tapped into. I didn't realize that the bus stop, they weren't coming to every bus stop, but they're coming quite frequent, I mean, very close to get everybody. But it was neat to see the interaction and that there were lots of kids there. So.
How we doing, Todd?
Getting close. Let's see. Casey, your phone that you're calling in on is the last 4 digits are 6528, right? Board Member Durbin.
Yep, that's me.
And Cliff, I've got you. Your last 4 digits are 1616.
Correct.
Richardson, 8796.
Correct.
And there's a couple other phone numbers on here. Anybody else that I missed that is calling in only?
D. LaGrange is 4281.
4281. Thank you. And yours, Brian, yours actually comes up the right way, so that's good. So person's last 4 digits are 6432. I'm going to put you in the waiting room. Okay, I think I've got everybody out. I think we're okay.
So
okay, why don't we go with Secretary Clark? Why don't you do a quick roll call just to make sure we're all here?
Okay, we have Board Chair Richardson.
Yes.
Member Durbin.
Yes.
Member Wilkins. Member Wilkins?
I was on mute. Yes.
Okay. Member De La Grange.
Yes.
Member Brownell.
She's on mute too.
Yeah, see that. Debbie, you're on mute.
Down at the bottom, Debbie, if you put your mouse towards the bottom of your screen, you can see the mic, or you can just press the space bar on your keyboard.
Well, so maybe she called in using her phone as well as, so she'd have 2 entries.
Debbie, you're gonna have to put your thumbs up or down. Are the last 4 digits of your phone number 6432? Nope. So you're good. Did you call in as well? Nope.
Todd, can you unmute her from your controls?
There, it just went through. Now, Debbie, try talking.
Okay, so yes,
Yay.
I'm here. I just lost part of my screen. And I don't know how to get it back. So I may have to.
Can you see us? Can you see us okay, or do you not see us anymore?
Well, so I can hear you and see people. I can't see the main screen. But if you can
You
hear
just have to click on your Zoom app again, because the people is a little sidebar thing. If you click on your Zoom app program, it should bring up the screen again. If we even need it for exec, I don't know.
Yeah, I tried that, but since I still seem to be here and I can hear you, we'll just keep moving ahead.
Okay, Member Nelson,
Here.
Member Coleman.
This is Cliff, I'm here.
Okay.
All right, so we're all here. We have, well, I guess Superintendent Kolb, you need to tell us what we're going to discuss in negotiations.
Sure. In light of the current conditions of teaching and learning today, we met with both associations and developed some MOAs, basically expectations under which we are going to operate moving forward. And I'm going to turn it over to Director Cantola to review those with you.
So you guys have the memorandums, the drafts there, I hope. So just quick history. The first time that we were out for a week, we met with the association and we pretty quickly came up with an agreement for how we would handle that week that was off of school. And then of course, unfortunately, that quickly turned into more time off of school until April 28th. So we have a template that we got from Nancy Hungerford. Nancy Hungerford, along with some lawyers from Eugene, developed kind of a template for how to address this particular governor's executive order in relation to executive or collective bargaining agreements. And so both of the agreements with the two associations should look relatively similar. So basically it's how long, it's through April 28th. We'd have to go back and extend the timeline if school gets canceled for the rest of the year, which at this point it looks pretty much like it will. Second provision just says that if anything conflicts with the collective bargaining agreement, this overrides it. The third thing is just the governor's executive order. Fourth thing is just to say that, yes, we will continue to pay people and insurance benefits and that kind of stuff. And then the two deviate just slightly. The one that is for the certified, make sure that it talks about the intent is for everybody to work from remotely if at all possible. And then it has some specifics that apply for the next 2 weeks about how we provide supplemental learning and what the scope of that supplemental learning will be. So that's that part of it. Then we have the emergency paid leave. That is the same for both groups. Brian, I think you asked last time, what are the conditions that make somebody at risk? And so that's the pretty descriptive list, inclusive list of what makes somebody at risk. Just FYI, we currently have 219 of our 440 classified members who are in the at-risk category. So that's the same for both. The evaluation piece, basically just saying that if they're in a program of assistance, that kind of stuff, they can't carry that out under these conditions. So we're holding that in abeyance. The next part says that we'll do the recommended CDC safety equipment. That could get messy if all of a sudden they require masks. So far, the CDC hasn't absolutely required that. Number 12 talks about if somebody, we know somebody in our employ has been exposed or they're at risk, that we would notify people. We actually had to do that for the first time this morning. We had 2 people who may be tested for COVID, one in the childcare arena, one when they were doing the Chromebook handout. And so we have notified people that were around them in both associations that somebody was in contact that may have the virus. And then the rest of it's just boilerplate stuff that says if anything additional comes up, that those will be addressed. Where this classified one deviates is that we made sure that it says that they would only receive their regular rate of pay, because in a typical emergency closure, if they're required to come in, then we would pay them double their regular rate. The other thing we did with the classified is that we said that we would take volunteers first when we were trying to fill any positions that we needed to fill. So far, so good. We've been able to operate very successfully with the people who have volunteered and so forth. So anyway, and then where we're going, Todd, the last one, because we've now gone past the supplemental stuff and we're going to go into distance learning. So not that one, Todd, but yeah. So just because it's so fluid, we just said we would add that particular phrase, that the district and association will cooperatively develop and minimally agree on or mutually agree on guidelines for staff communications with students, families, secondary staff expectations, and elementary staff expectations. So when I said that Linda, Todd, Sherry, Susan, and Trish have done outstanding work, we currently actually have 5 sets of guidelines that have been mutually agreed upon by the association and the district. 2 of them are involving the supplemental learning. 2 of them involve the district learning, 1 each for elementary and 1 each for secondary. And then we have a whole set of guidelines that have been mutually agreed upon about how to communicate with families and kids specifically. So lots and lots of stuff going on. Couldn't do it by myself, obviously, so lots of good support. So any questions so far?
I do. So is this in their
So who's
contract?
that?
Oh,
Who is it?
Board Member Wilkins. So in their
Thank
normal contracts, are there any emergency provision wording about anything like this?
Not this deep, but there is emergency provisions in both sets of contracts. So one in the teacher contract, it basically says that they would come back if we fall short of state mandated hours to offer education. That's the teacher one in a nutshell. The classified one in a nutshell says the same thing, except that if we call those people in this situation, there would be emergency situation pay, and we would actually give them double their pay.
The double. Okay. Will we be? Go ahead.
Well, right now the state has suspended basically the requirements for instructional hours, so we're not going to be able to extend into the summer and that kind of thing unless the governor mandates that we extend into the summer. So interesting times.
Certainly.
Any other questions about any of that stuff? I know there's a lot, so.
This is Member Richardson. Is it necessary to even do an MOA at all?
If the guidance that we got from Nancy is that they could ask to bargain, both associations asked to bargain, but they did it really quickly in doing these. And so when they ask to bargain, we have to do that.
And they did ask to
Okay,
bargain,
thank you.
correct?
They did ask to bargain, correct.
There was quite the panic amongst the unknown.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. I mean, I think it pretty clearly spells out what the expectations are, who's at risk, that kind of stuff. So I think it was actually a good process and some good guidelines that we have. It brings some clarity to people so that people can relax and calm a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So these are all date sensitive. Member Wilkins. Do these, so I see dates on them. Does that mean that the MOA is negated after that date? Or is it something that would continue forward?
It's an interesting time in bargaining. And so we actually, instead of having to reach an agreement, prior to reaching an agreement by that executive order, we can implement the things. And so we would just have to extend the date there, Cassie.
Okay.
But honestly, so far they have been so cooperative. Mickey's been so helpful. I think Trish and Susan could probably attest to that too. So.
Okay.
Brian, we good? Did we answer the questions from last time with this paperwork?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Just also so everybody knows, these did go before the SOBC. They had an emergency meeting about a week ago, and they both passed. It's been an interesting time. It's the first time I've ever gotten an email from somebody in Bend asking what our MOAs were, because we're a little bit ahead of the game.
Okay, are there any other comments from the members? Superintendent Kolb, is there any additional items for the executive session?
There are no additional items for the executive session. Director Bloomquist, you can bring people out of the waiting room.
Cool. Danny, so I'm double checking here. I'm taking this one out now. So we're done with this, the one that's on the screen. I can close out. You're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Danny, got to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
There you go.
That's the very, very first one that we did. And that one was really there just to show you how much things have changed. I mean, we started getting planning for eliminating conference days, eliminating staff development days and all that kind of stuff. Actually had that all hammered out, and then boom, that changed. We had the MOA about supplemental learning all hammered out, and boom, that one changed. And it's just been pretty rapid fire, but it's still amazing how quick, especially Susan and Trish and Mickey have been adaptable to doing this stuff.
Cool. So I can close this one out now.
Thanks, Todd. Yes, please.
And then this one can go away.
Yep. That just so you know, the last one, that would be the next thing that we're going to bring to the board and ask you to add to that MOA.
Got it. Okay. So I'm going to leave these up there for the regular session. They're part of the board docket then.
Yes.
Okey-doke. I can bring everybody back in. Are you guys ready for me to bring everybody back in? Thumbs up.
Please open the door.
It is open. Okay, everybody should be admitted back into the regular board session coming out of executive session.
Okay, this is Member Richardson. At this point, I would entertain a motion for approval of Riverside Elementary Classroom Addition findings of fact.
This is Member Durbin, so moved.
It's Member Nelson, second.
Cliff. Give it to Nelson.
Oh, that's so kind of you, Cliff. Thank you.
You deserve it.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Riverside Elementary Classroom Addition findings of fact. Superintendent Kolb, do you have a brief summary for?
Yeah, so this formality is basically to give the district the opportunity to move forward with the CMGC process, which is the contracting process to accomplish that building task. Director Ely, would you want to add anything to that?
Yes. The main reason that we're going ahead with this is that if we do get any kind of like federal stimulus money like we did back in 2008, they were distributing funds if you had shovel-ready projects. And so while I don't believe that we're going to be able to have the funding to complete this project, just because I'm worried about the budget reductions to general fund as well as SIA funding, I do want to have the project ready to go if there is any money that comes down from federal sources. And so, like Kirk said, this is really a formality, but it's just so that we can have everything ready and in place. Because if you do have projects that are shovel ready, they will approve the funding to come to those projects in front of a district that would maybe be thinking about a project. So trying to make sure I'm poised to take advantage of any funding that may come along.
Should we also be poised, sorry, this is Member Durbin. Should we also be poised to break ground on 2 brand new middle schools, just in case there's some extra federal funding out there, we're shovel ready. So
I love it.
Okay.
Sherry, this is Member Wilkins. I appreciate your insight and willingness to work on these types of things to get us ready so that we can maybe catapult.
Thank you.
Due to your history. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion from board members? Okay, at this point, Secretary Clark, would you please take a roll call vote.
Board Chair Richardson,
Yes?
Member Durbin,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member DeLagrange,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
and Member Coleman.
Yes.
Okay, this is Chair Richardson, and the motion carries. At this time, I would entertain a motion for approval of the certified COVID-19 MOA and the approval of the classified COVID-19 MOA.
Member Brownell, so moved.
I'll second.
This is Member Coolman. I'll second it.
Okay. At this point, is there any further discussion by the members? All right, at this point, Secretary Clark, would you please take a roll call vote?
Board Chair Richardson,
Yes?
Member Durbin,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member DeLagrange,
Yes.
Member Brownell,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Member Coleman.
Yes.
Okay, this is Chair Richardson, and the motion carries. At this point, since I failed to go over the future meeting dates before we went into executive session, I'll backtrack quickly and do that. We're going to have a board meeting next Tuesday at 5 o'clock, April 14th, and our other regularly scheduled board meeting Tuesday, April 28th at noon. And I think that's all we have scheduled. So at this point, is there any further business to come before the board?
There is no further business to come before the board at this time.
Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.